Freminet, he's so good, he can already 36 star the Abyss. And he's only level 1. Freminet is the most recent character to be released in Genshin Impact. And I'll tell you what, he has a really nice penguin. In all seriousness, this guy's teams are actually not that bad, and you can 36 star the Abyss with him. And if you're an overworld Andy, he's gonna be a lot of fun to use in the open world. And to be honest, I really love the way his kit works with the penguin timer that pops up and lets you know when your skills are ready. It's absolutely fantastic game design in some ways. But in other ways, I think Freminet highlights some of the biggest problems we have in Genshin Impact, but also some of the biggest strengths of Genshin Impact and why some of these problems are actually a good thing instead. Welcome to Jello Impact, where we build and test every single character to help you decide who you want to wish for and build. Just so you know, the title was not clickbait. I actually did 36 star the Abyss with a level 1 Freminet, but of course, as I'm sure you guessed, I used a Hyperbloom team. Hyperbloom is ridiculously strong on the first side of this Abyss right now, so you really can pretty much just slap any character that you want into the final slot and do really well. Isn't that an amazing little animation? He's so funny. So needless to say, I haven't actually tested him out fully. To be honest with you, I messaged my Discord server, which literally has hundreds of members, and not a single person has built Freminet yet, or at least that they would want to disclose to me. Maybe they were too embarrassed that they built this character. No, I'm kidding. But what I did do is I spent quite a bit of time checking out a bunch of clears by a number of content creators. You know, check out Zero Genshin, awesome videos. He did a Hyperbloom one too, that was really good. Got some really nice good clear times on there. And check out Fainrix, he did a physical clear with Kuki as the Electro Applicator and Healer, activating Superconduct, and then Xingqiu and Rosaria for freeze. And he also 36 starred the Abyss with Freminet. So there's a couple things here, right? Is Freminet actually good? Are we actually wrong? You know, a lot of people are calling Freminet trash, and then there's sort of this pushback from the community saying, no, you know, Freminet's actually good. Look at all the good things that he can do. Look how he can 36 star the Abyss. Look how many different teams he can work with. And there's a couple things going on here. Number one is this Abyss is easy. The DPS check required for this Abyss is one of the lowest we've had in a very long time. If memory served correctly, it's like about 3/4, if not 2/3 of what the previous big DPS checks were before. And I personally thought that the reason why was because they were going to balance it around stuff like this. I thought that maybe Uja and Numa mechanics would mean that you actually needed Uja and Numa characters to 36 star the Abyss, but the reality is you really don't. In fact, they're actually much more of an elemental check than they are an Uja Numa mechanic. The Uja Numa is almost an afterthought, to be honest. Of course, if you do happen to have the right element, you can disable their shield just like that. It's much faster, but having good elemental application is just fine as well. And I think that first of all, this is really good game design on Hoyoverse's part. They did not do the thing that I was worried that they would do. I was worried that Hoyoverse would completely make it so it's mandatory to use Fontaine characters in the Abyss, but really they didn't at all. I don't even know, like, I didn't notice really any discernible difference from clearing with Fontaine characters versus clearing with just strong teams of the right elemental type. Now, could this change in the future? Could they introduce more new enemies that are even more dangerous in the future? They could, but as is, it is totally doable. And I'll bring this back to Freminet, don't worry. Not only is it doable, but it's really easy. Like the Megu Kenki chamber, very simple chamber, very easy chamber. Emperor Fire and Iron, as long as you have enough Hydro to break the shields, very easy chamber. And then the final one, honestly, is just one of the easiest final floors we've ever had. And so Freminet being able to clear this floor of the Abyss, first of all, I haven't seen a single clear where he wasn't using Xingqiu. Not that it's not possible, not that you couldn't do that, but the reality is Genshin Impact is a game made of 4 team slots. And so this is where it kind of comes together. You've got the easiest Abyss ever, and you've got 4 team slots that you can use. Well, if the DPS check is 3/4 of what it usually is, you take out one character, and that's you only have 3/4 of the characters left. If the team is still functional, yeah, you're doing less DPS, but does it really matter? Because you're still getting that 36 star clear. So Freminet, let's say he's only half as good as most characters, which he's not. He's better than half as good as most on-field characters. But let's say he's only half. The team-wide DPS decrease is actually not that huge. So I just want to lay this groundwork and say that if you're seeing, you know, all these amazing clears with Freminet, that's what I saw some videos by some creators saying, you know, all my Freminet teams were able to clear the Abyss in less than the recommended minute 30 time. So, you know, solid character. And I just think that it's disingenuous, because when the Abyss goes back up, if it does go back up, then I'm not confident that he will truly be able to stand up especially when, you know, I just made a video about the top on-fielders in the game. We have so many good on-fielders, and the on-fielder is the most competitive space. Being able to drive Hyper Bloom, though, is really good, and that's where I want to talk about how these problems can become solutions. Because is it really a problem if we have a character that synergizes well with the team? Maybe they aren't optimal for the team, but they synergize well, they add damage to the team. Maybe it isn't as much damage as other characters, but they still function, they still perform. Maybe if you do invest in him, he will be able to clear every abyss. To be honest, Hyper Bloom is such a strong team that I could see this team totally clearing the Spiral Abyss. I will say I do have some problems with his kit. So one of his best passives is when he triggers Shatter against the opponents, the damage will be increased by 40% for 5 seconds. It's a big damage increase for his kit, and that basically means that if you can't shatter an enemy, then there's a huge portion of his team's damage, or his kit's damage, that you're not able to activate. So, and if his best team is Hyper Bloom, well, it's primarily a boss killing team, right? It's primarily a single target team. Yes, it does work against other enemies as well, but not being able to freeze bosses and shatter bosses means that he becomes even more of a suboptimal choice for your Hyper Bloom team. In addition, being required to shatter, like, shatter is not that good from a utility perspective, because the enemy gets frozen, which is nice. They can't aggro you, you can attack them, but then you shatter them and now they can move again, and so you kind of just undid a bunch of the work that you were doing. And so he's got this sort of internal conflict in his kit where there's sort of this anti-synergy. I like that they're making, you know, that they mention that shatter is a reaction in the game, but it ultimately serves just to restrict him more than it does to actually open up any new and creative team comps for him. But is it fine? But, you know, I could totally see the argument that it's fine that he's not the optimal choice. You know, after all, he's a 4-star. We can't expect, you know, 4-star on-fielders to really bring something new to the table. And if you're taking him to the overworld, again, you know, most people don't even play the Abyss. They don't even care about 36-starring the Abyss. So in that case, you know, you got a nice character. He has a fun kit. He's got a really cool mechanic. It's very interesting. The pressurized flow timer is really an interesting mechanic. So is it actually a problem? Is it and I would say no, it's not a problem. I think it's just sort of a shame that we have basically one of the most unique kits that we have in Genshin, that he, you know, relies on shatter, that he's got this cool timer, that that his skills are very fancy and very funky fresh and really, really interesting and unique. And we end up just using him in a Hyper Bloom team, which is like the most brain dead, boring team. And he just sort of ends up he has this super unique kit that doesn't get utilized, and he's just sort of carried by the Hyper Bloom team. And it's the opposite problem that I had with Linny. You know, Linny's actually really, really a strong character, but he's got kind of a boring kit. Like, his kit's interesting, but the team comps that it opens up are zero. He just uses Mono Pyro team, and but he has a really, really strong kit. He has strong personal damage. He works great on the team, but he doesn't offer really any new mechanics or anything brand new. I mean, he has some stuff with his hat, but it doesn't open up any new teams. And same with Freminet. He doesn't open up any new teams, even though he has a really, really unique kit. I guess it's more similar actually to Dia, where she's got a really, really unique kit, and it's really, really interesting, and there's a lot of stuff that makes it really, really cool and interesting. But at the end of the day, they're just underpowered. Using them on the team is just always a downgrade, and maybe you're able to look past that. Maybe you're able to, you know, just enjoy him for what he is, and just enjoy him for who he is. And I think that that's great, but it always hurts my soul a little bit when I'm using a character that I know I would always be better off using another character. I think it's why people don't like power creep, because power creep essentially makes it so previous iterations of the character just feel worse than the new iteration. And if, you know, as long as it still clears the Abyss, is it really a problem? I don't really have an answer for you. For those of you actually interested in building him, I wanted to throw a little build guide in here as well. If you're not interested, just skip in the timestamps and we can talk more about the discussion. For level, you want to leave him at level 80. Not really recommended to get him to level 90. It's not one of those high priorities like Kuki or Nahida, but as usual, being a carry, he does benefit from level 90. So if he's your favorite character, by all means. For talents, you want to focus mostly on your normal attack and skill, with burst being a little bit less of a priority. Most of his damage comes from his normal attack and skill, so you want to stick with that. For his weapons, you can basically look at this. You look at a Eula weapon guide. Any weapon that gives, you know, base damage, crit, physical damage. The Snow Tomb, Star Silver, even the Skyrider Greatsword. Obviously, the Serpent Spine is going to be good. Although do keep in mind, if you get hit by the enemy, you're going to lose stacks, and the Serpent Spine is going to lose value. The new craftable Claymore, the Prototype Archaic are going to be fine, and obviously most 5-star Claymores are going to be really good as well. You want to stick away from the Akumaru, stick away from Mailed Flower. They give elemental mastery and stuff like that. You don't want Sacrificial Greatsword. Unfortunately, the Bell, although it's S tier for drip, is really not good on him at all. So you want to stick to the main standard damaging weapons. You don't generally want to go Favonius. I just did because mine is level 1 support Fremine. But generally the DPS claymores are what you want to go for. For artifacts, it's pretty simple. You don't want to go full EM like I did. I just did full EM for maximized shatter damage, but obviously I wasn't even going to do any damage since I'm level 1 anyways. You want to go with 4-piece Pale Flame. That's going to be his best in slot set. And if you don't have 4-piece Pale Flame, you can do 2-piece Pale Flame and 2-piece Bloodstained Chivalry for the physical damage bonus. You actually do get a lot of value from the 2-piece physical damage bonus set. It's not as good as 4-piece Pale Flame, but it's a good stopgap. Or if you want to invest in him, but you don't want to go totally break the bank, then the 2-piece can be a great idea. For constellations, his C1's quite good, giving 15% crit rate for his skill. His skill giving him some energy. His energy isn't all that important, and he only has a 60 cost burst. You're generally not going to have energy issues, but it's nice for C2. Talent upgrades is fine. After you trigger reaction, get increased attack. It's a pretty good constellation for damage. And then C6 giving him increased crit damage is going to be a good constellation as well. So he definitely gets a lot more personal damage towards C6. I haven't seen calculations on exactly how much it goes for, but he's not a character that's functionality gets unlocked by his constellations. So you're going to be fine just to get him at whatever constellation you have, build him up, and then over time, when he's on banners that you're interested in, hopefully build up your constellations and eventually work your way to C6. But you can definitely start building him right when you get him, especially since you're using him on a Hyperbloom team most likely, right? For gameplay, the main thing you want to be doing is making sure you're getting up to level 4 stacks. And that's basically when you want to use your skill, when your stacks go up. Because the more stacks you have, the more physical damage you're going to be doing. And so that's basically how you want to play him. You can play him on a cryo team, but his physical team is much better. So you'll mostly want to be waiting till you have lots of stacks to use his skill. And it's really, really neat. I really, really like that. I really, really like his playstyle. If you want gameplay tips, definitely watch some of those creators I showed. They do great gameplay tips and gameplay videos they do great gameplay on how to use him. So definitely watch those Abyss Clears and get up to speed on exactly how to use them. For his teams, obviously the Hyperbloom team is by far going to be the best. For this particular Abyss, Hydro application, especially on the crab's horns, is really important. And Xingqiu seems to be a little bit better than Yelan for that, so you can definitely go with Xingqiu. But going double Hydro with Kuki is actually pretty good as well, because you get nice super conducts and shatters from Fremine with Kuki. And you can also swap out either Yelan or Xingqiu for someone like Rosaria or Shenhe if you have Rosaria at C6, or Shenhe at any constellation. Shenhe is going to provide physical res down, so that's going to boost up your Fremine for more personal damage. You could also use both Fremine and Rosaria. I feel like I'm doing a Eula guide again. You can check out my Eula guide for Eula teams. Basically, he's like Eula, but he doesn't have quite the energy issues, so you don't need to worry quite as much about battering him, and you can focus more on boosting his damage. So both Rosaria, Shenhe, and Kuki for resistance down. But you can also, instead of Kuki, you can even go for Zhongli. He'll also reduce resistance down. And at this point, if you have C6 Rosaria, C6 Shenhe, sorry, not C6 Shenhe, if you have C0 Shenhe and C0 Zhongli, you'll have enough Phys Res down that you actually don't need super conduct. So this can be an option as well. And of course, if you want to absolutely play with your butt clenched to your seat, you can go with Fischl for the final slot and get a lot more damage, but also completely forgo a defensive option. It's not recommended, but this will definitely be his most damaging physical team. The big problem with physical teams, I'm going to restart my discussion right here. The big problem with physical teams is that they just don't have that much synergy. Like Electro doesn't get anything from super conduct, and Cryo also doesn't get anything from super conduct. So you've got this elemental reaction that requires 2 elements, but neither of those elements actually get anything from that reaction. They're helping a third character, and you can't have multiple physical units on a team to take advantage of that super conduct, because there aren't any off-field physical damage dealers. So it ends up being, it's a real mess of an elemental reaction, and I really hope we can get some off-field physical damage dealers that have some utility and can buff Fremine and that can buff Eula. And I really actually think that there's a lot of potential for Hoyoverse to do this, and I think that Fremine and Eula are both in a good position that they could be buffed by something like that. So I hope we get that soon. We've been getting more attention to physical lately with both Fremine and Mika, so hopefully something is coming soon. So I really hope that Hoyoverse can find a solution to these 4-star characters, because at least for me, it just feels so bad to like level up my Kaveh to 90 and just have him always be a downgrade to other characters. But I do have some more constellations now, so I should try them again in the Nilou Bloom teams. But at the same time, we have like 70+ characters, so should I really expect every single one to be the best at something? Should I expect every single single one of them to have a decent niche, a good niche. Is that really fair for me to expect? I think Hoyoverse maybe makes enough money that we could hold them to high expectations. So I kind of want to do that, but that's where I'm going to land on this. That's my opinion. I'm disappointed with Freminet, but I'm very happy that he still has good teams that you can 36 star the Abyss. So if he's your favorite character, you didn't get so shafted. It's kind of like how I feel about Dehya. I wish she was stronger. I wish she was better, but hey, at least if you build her on a mono pyro team and build her properly, she can still 36 star the Abyss. So it's kind of like this win some, lose some we have with characters from Hoyoverse. If they're underwhelming, at least we have powerful other characters that can carry them to do well. And so you can always win with your favorites, which is great. But I would like to see, you know, this multi-billion-dollar company just put a little bit more into the characters so that they feel that they carve out a bit more of their own niche. Let me know what you think in the comments. It's a bit of an unscripted video, but I just wanted to talk about this topic because I think it's very nuanced, right? It goes back and forth. If you like this kind of discussion, you know, that's the main purpose, right? Is to provide a discussion for you guys to discuss in the comments. What do you think? I'm not trying to come out here with some big opinion. I just want to talk about it with you guys. So let me know your thoughts. If you want to support the channel, please consider subscribing. YouTube ad revenue is also notoriously inconsistent. So if you're supporting me on Patreon, thank you very, very much. Big shout out to Young Jay. Big shout out to Powell. Big shout out to Brian. Big shout out to Caitlin. Thank you to Justin. Thank you to Mythic Pie. Thank you to Young Napoleon. Thank you to OP8. Thank you to Cham Cham Trigger. Thank you to Lay7. If you want to join those lovely people in supporting the channel, check out my Patreon. You get priority access to account reviews when we do those. Feel free to join our Discord, meet a great community of people who love this game. And if you don't want to do any of that stuff, that is totally fine. Just watching the video has been more than enough. Thanks so much. Bye for now.